I'm joined by Joshua Simongal, Derek Achung, and Otto Carrington. And it's a pleasure to have everyone here with us this evening. Of course, we have some special guests that we're going to introduce to our program as well. Now, this segment, of course, this evening, powered by Royal Extra Stout for a refreshing, delicious, and unforgettable additive-free experience. Drink Royal Extra Stout, the full-bodied, lightly carbonated stout explodes in your mouth with balanced flavors of caramel, chocolate, coffee, and fruit combined with the smokiness of roasted barley. All right, for a royal experience, drink Royal Extra Stout. Our guest tonight is joining us from New York, where cannabis was legalized for recreational use back in 2021. Her name is Sheila Dawson, NYC Cannabis Caesar, is on Hightts, ladies and gentlemen. And before I introduce our special guest to speak with us, of course, I got to say hi once again to my panel. Joshua, what's going on?
Greetings, really looking forward to this interview with Ms. Dawson. Big name.
Derek, how you doing there?
Just right. Excited to start.
All right, I know we have the Grow Guru segment coming up a little later on as well, too. Otto, what's going on?
I'm fine, Sonny. It's always a pleasure to be in studio here, and definitely going to have a really insightful and entertaining show this evening. And just want to give a lot of respect to those who have been reaching out to us on social media. I mean, I cannot in no way say that they have been grateful for the support, and we are here to at least give the best information, not just from a Trinidad and Tobago standpoint, but from a regional and global standpoint regarding the cannabis industry. So yes, Sonny, let's roll. Let's go.
All right, let's get into it. As I said, we have a special guest with us this evening, and we really would like to have a nice conversation with her, Ms. Sheila Dawson. As I told you guys, the former executive of Fortune 500 companies and NYC's first cannabis director, and has been tasked with the responsibility of growing the city's cannabis industry. Now, that's a big task. Dawson is a fierce advocate for cannabis legalization and has a particular interest in repairing the damage caused by prohibition in communities and also in addressing health disparities. All right, we are honored to have Sheila Dawson on our program. Good evening and welcome to Hightts.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
All right, it's a pleasure to have you here on the program, and I really want to sit back now as moderator and really pass to my panel because I know they have some nice questions to ask, and you come with a wealth of knowledge. So it's a pleasure having you on our airwaves, broadcasting live in Trinidad and Tobago on Slam 100.5 and Freedom 106.5 FM. So let me ask Joshua to get in and lead the way.
Hi, Dashida. I just want to start off. People have this perception of legalization that, it's a free-for-all. Anybody can smoke, anybody can buy, anyone can sell. I just want you to explain to our listeners what a legalized market looks like from a New York perspective.
That's a great question. It is definitely very different depending on the state that you're in. I love to give New York versus Florida because those are visited states and both are legalized, but they have two different approaches to the effort. So Florida is one of the largest medical cannabis states. It legalized for medicinal use. And although cannabis is inherently medicinal, to be able to consume cannabis there, you have to be part of a medical program. And I believe it's $50 to become a part of the program. It requires a doctor's certification. And you can only shop in legalized medical dispensaries that have received a license from the state. If you are caught with cannabis and you don't have a medical card, you can still go to jail in states like Florida, despite the state making multiple billions of dollars on the industry. Versus New York. New York in March of 2021, when it legalized, it fully decriminalized. So any person over 21 can have up to 3 ounces of flour on them, as well as concentrate. And I think people are more concerned, of course, with the flour. Usually, you can also give away up to 3 ounces of flour as long as you're not taking a payment. You can consume cannabis, more particularly smoke cannabis, in places that you can smoke a cigarette. But in the same places that you can't smoke a cigarette, it's also not legal to smoke there. New York was one of the first states to include a public consumption option in a lot of mature markets like Oregon and California. Technically, you're not allowed to smoke in public or consume in public, but that's not the case in New York. And Yeah, New York has a medical program as well, and it's actually free to become part of the medical program now since the legalization efforts have happened. But to me, it really is a big difference when you can carry a certain amount and it's really 21 and over, and there's less of a use of the smell of cannabis as a detective, clue that bad stuff is happening. In fact, a day after legalization, the NYPD put out a memo that basically said it would stop using smell as a way to detect a suspect or choose to follow up with search and seizures and other things that might happen as a result.
Yeah,
So
that was a big deal right there. I need to come in real
yes.
quick because I remember reading an article because I'm on the radio for the past few years. And I remember reading the article when they said they're no longer allowing that. So if the police pulls you over, for instance, and they find, wow, we have a strong odor emanating from this vehicle, that is no longer a reason to search the car. Now, that's a big deal, right? Now, I traveled to New York in 2020, just before the pandemic, and I was there about a month ago. So I actually witnessed the difference.
Change over.
Correct, because I remember in 2020, I actually saw a couple of vans like down in New York itself, like on the road, the marijuana-related vans, and some people like, yo, them vans not really regulated, but they kind of regulated, so you need to be kind of careful what you do in public. And I was like, how you mean? And then this time around a month ago, I was outside the bowling alley, like, you just walk outside the bowling alley, the place is cool, and people rolling up right outside the bowling alley now. So it's like, wow, that's a lot of change right there, being able to, as she said, smoke the flower in places where you can smoke a cigarette. You know what I mean?
No,
So
but I think that's because New Yorkers have this liberal state of mind. They're known for the New York state of mind. Is that the reason why New York has adopted a much more liberal approach as opposed to the other states? The traditional home of cannabis in America is really Cali, But yeah.
I think a lot of it had to do with the approach of the legalization movement. It started with a social justice movement here. New York arrested more people than any other state in the country for cannabis possession, and New York City was the arrest capital of New York. There's a lot of government accountability for poor policies of the past, the racial bias that was its enforcement, especially in New York, where it was 14 times more likely for a black person to be arrested for cannabis possession, 8 times more likely for a Hispanic person. Those numbers are showing that the previous ways that cannabis prohibition was executed really did damage to particular communities. And New York is one of the first states to finally say, hey, if the government broke it, the government probably needs to do the work to fix it.
And is reparations part of the discussion in New York right now? You said the communities were severely affected. Is there any sort of compensation talks in place?
I think reparations as a broad part of what is an entire reparative need, all falling under reparations. What makes cannabis very unique is that we're currently in a window where we can all, me, you all, we can remember in the last 50 years what type of devastation. And before people get amnesia and say that was, my grandfather's, I can't pay for the sins of my grandfather or my great-grandfather, we literally are talking about, myself, my father, and we have enough proof of it. And I think we want to set the precedent. And if we're able to do it in cannabis, do I think we can do it in other ways and have a much bigger conversation? Absolutely. But I think it's the first time that legally we have a way to approach things with maybe a bit more race consciousness, because the clear prohibition execution was racially biased. The numbers do not lie. And we had that compelling reason for government to want to fix it.
Hi, Ms. Dawson, Otto Carrington here. I just want to bring it back to the Caribbean. I know that you are a fierce advocate in America and specifically New York. What advice would you want to give to the region? Because we are very early in the game. What advice would you give, especially where we are seeing, because we have one of our co-hosts who's actually in New York at this time, and he just said that, he is there and he's seeing a lot of liberalization happening. What advice would you give to the Caribbean leaders at this time who are aiming the economy to enter into the cannabis industry?
Well, I definitely have been a global advocate, especially across the diaspora, which includes the Caribbean, of course, and the continent. And what I will say is do not allow white men from California to come over or Colorado and deem themselves the expert on something that we clearly already have the benefit of our know how through generations. And that is something we've been seeing not just on in the Caribbean and in various islands, but we've also been seeing it on the continent as well. It's the scariest part. We are definitely constantly fighting over here, and we are happy with some of the progress. But I also don't think neither United States nor Canada represent the type of legalization efforts that we want to emulate in countries that are predominantly led by people of color. I think we have to re-educate ourselves about the understanding of the plant's medicinal and connection and spiritual connection to our ancestors, and no better place than to do that in the islands. And I think that's something is not being discussed here at all as far as America is concerned. It's like at the back end of it, and now we're finally starting to see the Rastafari in our communities here come out to events and be included. But there are points where I think that we can start at a better conversation within the Caribbean and on the continent.
Cannabis New York City season, Deshida Dawson on the line with us right now, having that much needed conversation right here on Hightts, ladies and gentlemen. And this segment is brought to you with the kind compliments of Royal Extra Stout. Now, Ms. Dawson, you stay on the line. What we're going to do is take a quick pause, literally about a minute, and we're going to come back with some more right here on Hightts, where knowledge rules.
Slam 100.5.
Welcome back to our program, Derek.
Hi, Ms. Dawson. You're talking about the minority communities and how they were affected by the strong criminalization of marijuana previously. How has it been in terms of transitioning with the recreational market and the industries and the grow companies and stuff like that? How has it been for them to transition into legitimate work?
It hasn't been very good, if I'm being perfectly frank. The industry started very much with an exclusionary clause in most of the legalization efforts that prevented people from communities that had been disproportionately impacted and/or those who had been previously arrested or incarcerated related to cannabis. And so we are seeing a very small percentage of Black and brown people that are actually entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs. And in fact, New York actually was the first in the tri-state area to open the first Black-owned dispensary a few months ago, and that was something noteworthy because New Jersey had already been legal for over a year. Connecticut was just legalized as well, and that New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area was still not seeing the very people that they put in jail have an opportunity. So we're thrilled to actually be able to demonstrate that in New York. It is not without its challenges. And I think it's even more so in places like Trinidad, where you have to be more looking at the socioeconomic status, because we're also seeing the correlation among lower income communities that you see that arrest pattern. And so it's a combination here of both racial and economic equity that we're looking to address with legalization.
Ms. Lawson, in the Caribbean, all our territories who have individually decriminalized would have, focused on medicinal marijuana while trying to shy away from the recreational side a bit. As you said, New York, I think Colorado is another state, and there are a few others, newer ones now that have tried recreational as opposed to this medicinals, where it's like alcohol. Once you're over the age, present ID, you can get. Our leaders, seem to think that, you would have zombies walking around children, it will be in children's hands. Can you tell us, from that perspective, in terms of enforcement and the world not shutting down as a result of, having recreational cannabis like alcohol in stores?
Well, actually, this is my favorite conversation because the language of cannabis equity is evolving, and New York is surprisingly does not have a recreational market. We purposely did not use that term because when we did surveys of consumers in the other mature markets of Oregon, Colorado, Washington, California, what we saw is that the top 3 reasons people shop who are 21 and over are for sleep, pain, and anxiety, which are all medicinal. And so having the government tell people that their use because they're 21 and over is definitively recreational is wrong. And so New York didn't do that. We call our market an adult use market, meaning that you are as an adult, 21 and over, you have the right to use cannabis however you see fit. That might be nutritionally, agriculturally, medicinally, it could be spiritually, as we talked about earlier. And so it also could be recreationally. But the government doesn't get to decide, the individual does. And what we found is the individual been deciding. We've had millions of people doing responsible use before we legalize, and we'll continue to have more responsible use because now we get to have a public education campaign. It actually makes things safer when we talk about it, as opposed to maintain a more underground kind of quiet as is kept conversation. I think the more we have open, we infuse more science. We get to talk about the real reason people are going into the dispensaries. It's not for the stereotypes, as we like to joke about, or the tropes, whether it's Method Man, Red Man, who I love, and they're advocates from How High. They're now in their 50s. They use cannabis different too at this point. And so we've evolved, and we want to make sure that the conversation does. And I think that's the answer. The answer is that we continue to change the language and evolve it beyond it. And New York is absolutely doing it. We're going to have people using cannabis not because they're trying to recreate, but because all these other things. And part of my job in my office is to make sure that people are educated on how to do that.
Education is really a big part as to what is taking place here, and I can really relate to what I'm hearing here now, meaning everyone has really been speaking a whole lot about, oh my God, just medicinal, but why I just can't be able to do this thing for recreation, right? As you hear a lot of that in the Caribbean as well, and even around the world.
For whatever reason.
But for what was rightfully mentioned by the statistics here now, you would say the majority of people over 21, they come in for a particular cause or a reason, and in reality, it's more of a purpose as opposed to really recreation. You're really studying boy anxiety or must sleep or whatnot. So in reality, most of what's going on here is medicinal more than recreational, and it's really a change of language just by understanding, as you rightfully said. And so I really appreciate what you have mentioned, Derek.
I think what Ms. Dawson was saying is that we shouldn't have to declare. We shouldn't have to say, well, I have this. I mean, if you're of the age and you know what it does for you, you go ahead.
However, at the same time, what I did gather though is that from statistics, as much as you can say and do as you feel, the reality is majority of people actually coming in for a reason.
Yeah,
correct.
It's a little bit of both.
Yeah,
I love that. You don't have to declare, but one thing we won't do is the government can't tell you how that cannabinoid is working in your body.
True. Yeah.
Like, no.
Ms. Dawson, just as we continue the conversation, which is extremely insightful, because of the work you have done globally, have you been in contact with any groups or communities in the region and guiding the process? Because for some strange reason we have this myth of disconnection between the ground and persons knowing what will happen when it comes to the legislation and the rules and the regulations. Have you been in contact with anyone in the region?
Well, I definitely think that there are some organizations that now have some global reach, and I'll name them so people can take a look. I started off with Minorities for Medical Marijuana, and one of our leaders there, and I'm no longer a member in the same way because of my government role, but is Nicole Bafong, and she's definitely very connected here. I've also really spent a lot of time with the Cannabis Health Equity Movement, or CHEM, again working on diasporic and again Caribbean and continent conversations as people are trying to figure it out. I'm really blessed, to be perfectly honest, to say that I also have a strong cultivators community. There are a lot of Black farmers trying to figure this out, whether it's from the hemp side of things or the marijuana side of things. And so that has been a real deep connection to farmers networks and cooperatives that are starting to have conversation across countries. And then I would say certainly the connection with the Rastafari community has been a very interesting one, to kind of highlight how we should be thinking about some of the spiritual context that I think overlook completely sometimes here in the United States. So those are the different groups that I've been connecting with and have been really helpful in kind of explaining what's happening. And in fact, not for nothing, I was just in Trinidad and Tobago for Carnival. I had two best friends from Trinity, and I've never been in Carnival.
I was gonna
And
ask. I was hearing you ask, and I was wondering if you had Caribbean roots. To be honest with you, I was getting a
I'm
little twang in it.
Brooklyn, so I'm not. I'm actually an American descendant of slaves. But when you're in Brooklyn, it's like Little West Indies. Like, one thing my best friend was making fun of me because I didn't know what doubles was, but I was like, I really didn't know. But she was like, "How you growing up in Brooklyn? You know what doubles is?" Because it's that prevalent. The community has been kind of, it's intertwined, and all of us have a little half accent as a result. And my best friends, when I think about growing up, one is Trini, one is from Barbados. It is very Brooklyn, and I'm the American one. But I do think what we get is a learned experience. And so doing Trinidad Carnival as a, person who with a family that is Trini and they've been doing it for year and year, it was hard. I had to get my workout on. I had to go across the Brooklyn Bridge every day just to get ready.
Now, did you actually follow up with your doubles since leaving Trinidad? Like, did you go to Trin City or something in Queens and get your doubles since? So have you been following up?
Thank you for the recommendation. I've gotten a few. I'm gonna head out to Queens. I need to make sure it's five borough. Apparently, there's some stuff up in the Bronx, and I didn't know. I just thought Queens and Brooklyn, but apparently they're all over.
All right, so folks, good evening. I'm glad to have all listeners on board. It's 28 minutes after 6 o'clock, and in case you're just tuning into the program, this is Hightts, where knowledge grows, and we're actually in conversation with the CEO of Cannabis Education and Entrepreneurial Empowerment Company, Weedhead and Company, the Sheeda Dawson boy. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't always with the government, nor did I think I was going to wind up working in government. It's the last place. I crossed over into the industry as a cannabis patient. I have early MS, and about 15 years ago, I started having these flare-ups, and they got worse and worse in really, really, really cold temperatures while I was working for Target. And I jokingly say I went from Target to THC because I kind of did. I mean, I started using cannabis as a underground user while I was an executive there. My mom had cancer and she really needed it, and she suggested it for me. And when I started using it, I started seeing that, hey, this is actually working for insomnia, it's working for all sorts of ailments. And then she passed away unexpectedly, and it just started my whole trajectory out of corporate into the cannabis space, where I just wanted to be a patient with dignity. I feel like you can use cannabis and be highly productive, pun intended, and I am, and I have been in the closet and now out the closet. And the Weedhead really was my telling of that story and the journey, and eventually I wrote a workbook because I felt like there were so many people, especially Black people, that were not following the right path. Like this thought you have to have a dispensary. I made a good business, a good family business on the ancillary side as a consulting firm, and doing a lot of advocacy work. So I didn't want more people to learn that path. And so the Weedhead is me. I'm the Weedhead, and I'm happily so. And thankfully, because I launched that before I got into government, every time a government lead picks me or appoints me, they're saying they want the Weedhead to run their industry. And it's, only proven it for the better for them. But ultimately, I'm trying to build industries that I can live in, that I can survive in as a person that uses cannabis for my day-to-day, to be as high functioning as I possibly can.
Ms. Dawson, given your extensive business experience and your knowledge base about cannabis business in particular, having come to the Caribbean and you're familiar with the culture and you see the offerings of the Caribbean, do you think there's a legitimate opportunity for the Caribbean cannabis market to compete on a global scale? There's a lot of people here with a sort of old-time sort of thinking, saying, that pipe dream of making cannabis the next big thing in the Caribbean is unrealistic. It can't be accomplished, but do you necessarily agree with that, or do you think there's the potential for this thing to rejuvenate the Caribbean economy in that sense?
I do think there's a potential, but I also think we have to acknowledge what we're up against. And capitalism ultimately is what we're up against. And, part of my role as a global advocate is ensuring that we're not selling the farm without knowing the value of it. Between land race genetics and the ability to do innovative things just based on temperature, supporting cultivation, I feel like the Caribbean has an exceptional opportunity. But what we want to see also happen beyond just being raw materials, which is happening in Caribbean and on the continent, in my opinion, we got to figure out how to expand the profitability pie by also creating brands. And I think that there's something to be said about homegrown brands, and a lot of New York culture right now is on that vibe. Like they want to buy New York, they want to buy New York City, and they want to buy the brands that are really born and bred here. And I think I'm hoping the same for the Caribbean as well. There's certain things that's also training, as they would say, or TNT, and then I think it's important that that gets established from the door, that that's the type of market that is wanting to be built locally. And I really cannot stress the opportunity in tourism. They talk about it in New York City, but in a place where it's warm and you can facilitate wellness experiences with the tourism and cannabis, I think it has a much higher profitability and margin. And Thailand is already figuring this out. I know that the Caribbean can as well.
Yeah, so you can actually see yourself coming back to TNT, maybe heading to Tobago, doing a horseback ride with your flowers in mouth, enjoying a sunset, yes?
Indeed, that sounds good.
It sounds good already. But you know, we're getting ready to take another commercial break. You don't go anywhere. Thank you so much for being here with us on the program. Special thanks to our sponsors, Royal Extra Stout, for a royally refreshing and delicious experience of flavorful stout. Drink Royal Extra Stout. Stay with us after the break. We continue our conversation with Sheeta Dawson of Cannabis NYC and Weedhead and Company. And later on, we have some other guests that are going to be joining us from Jamaica as well. So stay tuned, all right? Don't move a muscle. This is Hightts, where knowledge grows.
Slam 100.
Welcome back to the Caribbean's #1 cannabis industry and culture show, Hightts. Remember to join the Hightts Nation by following Hightts on all major social media platforms on TikTok, Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, and Facebook. There you will find exclusive Caribbean cannabis culture content, and we are continuing our conversation with the head of NYC Cannabis, the Sheeta Dawson. Guys, let's go.
Ms. Dawson, Otto here again. I just want to look at figures in regards of growth when it comes to the cannabis industry. Is there any figures that you can have off the top in regards of economic growth,
In terms of the state revenue,
state
what
revenue,
we've seen
correct.
over the last
for New
5
York,
years,
yes.
for mature markets, has been a 3-figure growth. But you do see markets like Illinois and Massachusetts starting to level out at about 45-50% compounded annual growth rate, which is still significant. I mean, when I was at Target, we was happy if we were getting 1 to 2% for mature markets. So the fact that it's still double digits shows that there's an incredible, real opportunity here. But most are 125 to 250% year over year, because we're still in the infant stages. Even though it's been happening for more than 10 years, it's still the infant stages of the industry.
Ms. Dawson, there's a perception worldwide that about cannabis users, how they look. We're trying to get away from those stereotypes, but I've just checked out your bio, and you've had these corporate jobs in Fortune 500 companies. What's the use like out there now in New York, and especially with decriminalization, the allowances for adult use? Is the perception changing? Like, who is the cannabis user changing in that sense? Are people trying it? Adults, trying it more, or are a little bit more open to trying it now, who might not have done so before?
I definitely think there's a new face of cannabis, but it's a new face of legal cannabis. The fastest growing legal users are actually women, primarily women of color, largely for the ailments that we talked about. And yes, how it's looking is looking different. I mean, while I was really working outside of the government, I was doing events like Bud and Bougie, where we have a little bit of a different look at how the culture of cannabis experience looks. It's still and most grow cups is still very bro. You're gonna mostly see men, and it's still like for every 9 out of 10 people are male. But in New York and a lot of newer markets, you're starting to see the infiltration of what the women's perspective looks like, and I definitely think that is definitely tailoring how New York is shaping up, but by and large, we also are, we got people who just been in the closet and they're now coming out a little bit more. And I think that's why I launched the Weedhead, and New York legalizing has more people, still largely white people, feeling brazen enough to say, I'm a cannabis user, and actually being empowered in it. I still think Black and brown people, with the way that we were heavily policed. Our perception meters that we have to struggle with are still at lower rates coming out the closet or using, as new users. But yeah, it's women, and it's also 55 and older. Some people are shocked to see that our legal dispensaries have lines, and you could definitely see the baby boomers. They are out, and they are very excited to finally have cannabis in a way that is not restrictive because they only know the war on drugs.
And Ms. Dawson, I know there are some long-standing issues are related in the banking sector. What are some of the limitations because of the maintenance of the federal law that cannabis is ultimately illegal? What are some of the limitations that you're facing within the state in relation to that, to the maintenance of that?
Yeah, banking is a challenge for government entities as well as for the actual small businesses. And the larger businesses have been able to get around it using a conglomerate approach where they have one business that is actually plant touching, does the work of the cultivation or the manufacturing or the retailing, and then another business that is not at all plant touching and maybe will house the salaries of the CEOs and is more of a management service company that does all of the strategy and execution, but not the direct touching. And that's been a workaround. But the biggest thing that people are really struggling to overcome is the 280E tax implication as a result of the Schedule 1 designation of THC, Delta 9 THC. This implication has shown itself to cause the industry to overpay. Last year, $1.9 billion in taxes were overpaid as a result of 280E by the cannabis industry to the federal government because of the law. You can't deduct certain expenses, marketing and advertising expenses that typically would go under deductions for tax liability. It is not the case. And so the after-tax rate for most cannabis companies is somewhere between 70 to 90%. Meanwhile, after-tax rate for small business in the U.S. is 20%. And so that is the biggest challenge right now. But nothing right now in banking would fix that. Honestly, the bill, that safe banking bill, it has nothing to do with the tax implications. The only thing that will fix that is if President Biden and the executive branch decides to deschedule or reschedule the Delta 9 THC.
Wow.
Yeah.
70 to 90%. That is ridiculous.
It is insane. And, these people do not know how to do P&L management. They weren't trained at like Targets or whatnot, but that is the biggest struggle is when you overspend your marketing budget, you overspend to buy a market. Even the big companies struggle with this. Many of those brands, they've lost, multiple hundreds of millions of dollars over the years, but they're able to fundraise them further. So of course it hurts smaller businesses more. It hurts minority-owned businesses more, where capital is really hard to come by, and so you really have to be very, very organized and structured, and with your planning and your budgeting.
Well, it's 6:45 here, and we know that you are very much on time, and you have a couple of things to handle yourself. So we have to thank you for being a part of the program. Before we let you go, though, I wanted to ask a simple question because you follow some of the things on news. You might see it on Bloomberg and different places. Marijuana on the stock market. What's the issue with the marijuana in the stock market or cannabis in the stock market in the U.S. right now? We heard that they had some issues, actually.
Well, one, a lot of the public companies aren't paying their taxes. That's the first issue. The second is that we don't have a lot of public companies because of the federal schedule, and most of those that have gone public have done so in Canada, with operations happening in America. It makes it even, a little bit weird of a risk, but yeah, the fluctuation of the market has been crazy. And digital currency, lastly, I think the Silicon Valley Bank going down in the way it did definitely impacted the cannabis industry here in the U.S. as well, as far as investment is concerned.
With the recent decriminalization, I know dispensaries would have been setting up over the past year. I'm wondering, what does that say for the friendly neighborhood dealer that everybody would have normally had to rely on before? Is it a situation where the underground market is totally dead, or is it does it still have life until things get up and going and set up?
people don't like to hear it, but it definitely still has life. If it could survive all those years of the way the laws used to be, it's going to survive now. But our goal here in New York is I want to make the plug legit. So I feel like that person should have an opportunity to transition in. They should be first in line, in fact, one, because they have a lock on the distribution and the marketing. They obviously have the consumers. If you make the plug legit, you make all of their people that they're servicing legit too. That's the puzzle I'm trying to solve for. So yeah.
It's been a pleasure having this conversation with you, Miss Dawson, and thank you for sharing your time, knowledge, expertise with us right here in Trinidad and Tobago at Slam on 00.5 and Freedom 106.5 FM. And we do wish you a fantastic evening. Continue your hard work. I believe next time I'm in Brooklyn, I am most definitely going to try my best to hook up with you to get a closer insight. As in, no, I'm being for real. We need to, it's one thing for us to bring the conversation live to our listeners. And of course, we know content is king. So, for instance, if we do have that opportunity to link up one-on-one and we could actually show some of our listeners as well directly what we mean by what we were saying, it would really be an honor and a privilege as well, all right? So thank you very much for that. All right?
Thank you.
Thanks again. So have a fantastic evening again. And folks, thanks for tuning in. We're getting ready to take a quick commercial break and come back with some more. We just wrapped a big conversation there with the head of NYC Cannabis, Deshita Dawson, and she is representing. She was actually here for Carnival 2023, her very first experience, and she enjoyed some doubles as well. Hopefully she makes her way down to Queens and get that recommendation that we tossed on. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to have some more. This is Hightts, where knowledge grows. Sonny Bling, Joshua Simongal, Derek Chung, and Otto Carrington until 8.
Slam 100.
Welcome back to Hightts, where knowledge grows, right here on Slam on 00.5 and Freedom 106.5 FM. Yours truly, Sonny Bling, alongside Joshua Simongal, Derek Chung, and Otto Carrington. And we just had a fantastic conversation there. We had to thank Deshita Dawson. It was a pleasure sharing that conversation and being a part of the vibe. Of course, brought to you with the kind compliments of Royal Extra Stout. We have that segment coming up a little later on, all courtesy Grow Guru. You guys get a chance to win some goodies, all right? So we're going to continue with our conversation right now, and I'm going to pass over to Joshua Simongal. It's time for us to introduce our artist of the evening, who is going to be coming in with us to hold a meds right now, Jamaican reggae artist, Samurai Eye. Born Samurai Tor Fraser, Samurai Eye is a roots reggae artist who has a unique and distinctively soulful voice that preaches messages of truth. His 2017 debut album, Black Gold Capital, catapulted him to the highest heights of reggae with his hit songs like Rasta, No Gangsta, and Black Gold. Samurai Eye has followed up the success of Black Gold with the likes of hits Love and Mercy, which you heard a little earlier on, and Blood in the Streets. You're going to hear that one this evening. And a new album is also expected soon. I understand he might have dropped some music earlier on today as well. Samurai Eye is here to discuss his connection with cannabis, his thoughts on the regional industry, and of course, the latest with his music. Greetings to Samurai Eye.
Man, blessed love, give thanks for having I.
Greetings, Samurai. It's a pleasure to have you on. I just want to, before we get into the music, I just want to start the conversation with cannabis. Just tell me about, I know you're as a reggae artist and a Rastafarian, and in your messages and your songs. I just want to find out about your personal and spiritual connection to the plant.
Yeah, blessed love again. My spiritual connection to the plant is that it takes me to a higher plane in terms of meditation.
Right, and is it part of your...
How I write my music.
Sorry, go ahead, Samurai.
How I write my music. You know what I'm saying? It is highly influenced by herb.
And just take me through the creative process. And when was your first time you would have used the plant, and how you came to come to using the plant? Was it through elders in the community? And just tell me a little bit about that process.
Yeah, it was through a friend in the community, you know what I'm saying? It was at a very young age where, you shouldn't be smoking. So, I was hanging out with an older crowd when I was a youth, you know what I'm saying? And, I tried it, when I was 10 years old, and since I tried it from that day, you know what I'm saying, I never looked back.
Hey, Samurai, this is Otto Carrington. I just want to, go back a bit because, I'm just discovering your music here, and definitely it shows that connection to the flower. and with you now saying you've been involved with the plant for quite some time, tell me from the
Yeah.
perspective in regards of cannabis in Jamaica. I mean, how do the average person interact with the flower and build that creativity that you say that you portray that we hear in your music?
Yeah. You see, the herb in Jamaica is used on a day to day, not just for smoking, but for also food purposes. You get me? You have people who consume the plant by tea or through baking. You get me? You have others that consume the plant through smoking. The youth them smoke day to day. You get me? Smoking is a way of help calm the calm the youth, or is a way to help fuel the anger with the youth have inside of him. Because marijuana is not only used as for good, it is also used for bad, because I man was a troubled youth also, so I can tell you, from my perspective, you get me, as a kid, you get me.
And what would have pulled you away from that lifestyle? Was it music and the influence of Rastafari, you'd say?
It wasn't music, it was the influence of Rastafari. You see, because I man always knew I had the talent, no one else knows, no one else knew around me. You get me, I always kept that inside. But I always knew I could sing. It was Bridget Anderson, my manager, who brought that out of me. I was, I got in some trouble. You get me, and when I came back, I was staying close by to Bridget Anderson, who brought me closer to the faith of Rastafari.
And tell me about the process of how Rastafari and cannabis through meditation brought you to a place. I know you're a very proud black man, very proud black Jamaican man. Tell me about how Rastafari and cannabis through meditation would have helped you get to that place of self-love. And
what I'm saying? As I say, as a youth, I wasn't using the herb for any good personal purpose. I was using the herb to fuel my anger. You get me? Help me to be braver, to do certain things. That was what the herb was used for by me. After I was injured, you get me? I started to use the herb in a different way because Bridget, and this is my manager again, showed me a different way. She brought me forward and told me that the marijuana should bring it to a lower place, but to a higher plane. And that is how I used it to uplift myself through the word, because the Bible played a very important part as well. Because I couldn't just be smoking the marijuana and getting positive vibrations or meditations. I had to be reading the word as well. So what I'm saying, that is how I used cannabis to come forward to the faith.
And just going into the music now, we know you had the big breakthrough in 2017 with Black Gold. Just tell me about it and what it was like being catapulted into the heights of reggae at that time, and some of the personal challenges you might have had, and how your life would have changed for the better after that for that album.
Yeah, my man was born and raised in the ghetto, you get me? How the music helped me was I give Jah the praise and got the raise through that, you get me? It helped me to better the liberty of my family and myself. A way of upliftment. You get me? How did it feel? It was a very humbling feeling for me. You get me? Knowing where I'm coming from to where I am or where I'm headed. Just because, I kept my head down and studied the word of Rastafari. It is a humbling feeling.
Samori, I just want to, I am appreciative to see the transition in your life from turning something from negative into positive. Just for the listening public in Trinidad and Tobago who may not know Samori, just give an insight as to who you are, where it all started, in the sense of your musical career and how long you have been there, and just give an insight so that people in Trinidad and Tobago can know about you and know more about you.
Now, trust me, real people know some
I ain't saying I'm not. I ain't saying no, but the reality is that he is a popular name.
More people needs to know about me, man. So of course, So yeah, how my musical journey began was, as I say, man was injured. I was shot up a few times, you know. Now I'm saying upon my recovery, I met Bridget Anderson, who through her I met two beautiful young ladies, Susu and Jamila, the legendary Earl Trina Smith daughter. Every day they were singing, you know what I'm saying, and I was there just listening until one of them said to me, Samri, every day I hear you sing, why can't you sing? When I started to sing, I blew their minds, and you know that is how I am now.
Where do you think you pull from? Where do you think your inspiration comes from? What do you want people to take away most from your music, you'd say?
My inspiration comes from my pain. You get me? Where where I'm coming from. That is what inspires me. You know what I'm saying? To bring more youth from the darkness to the light. It's what drives me every day.
Yeah, I know reggae music has been such a proponent of Caribbean cannabis culture through Bob Marley and all the great artists that have followed. Do you think enough is being done to with the liberalization of the cannabis industry in the Caribbean? Do you think enough is being done to reward reggae artists who share the culture? Do you think there's been enough inclusion of reggae artists like yourself?
No, not at all. These politicians in the Caribbean think that the tourists come here to see them are the reason why the tourists are here, because they hear about them and want to meet them. These people legalize marijuana for the rich because the poor man cannot obtain the license for this. For this. The man who was persecuted can obtain a license by this. So this is not legalization for the poor man, this is for the rich, the money hungry. The ones who already had it, the ones who would have called the police on you and me if they saw us smoking. They are the ones who are profiting from herb right now the most. In terms of the whole legalization of cannabis, especially in my country.
Are you there? Summary?
Yeah, hello?
Yes, we're hearing you. You said it in your country.
Yeah, in my country. Who is profiting off of profiting off of the legalization of marijuana is the rich, the man who would have called the police on me or you if him see me or you smoking a spliff.
Yeah.
That man is the man who is profiting off of the marijuana. The legalization of marijuana in my country.
All right, so here's what we're going to do now, Samari. I'm going to introduce Blood in the Streets. We're going to feature that track here right now, Blood in the Streets. And then we're going to come back with some music. What do you want to tell us about that track in particular, Blood in the Streets?
Yeah, it's from how I see I go on a day-to-day in a Jamaica, around the world, you get me? Too much people dying through violence, you get me? We have more people dying through violence than people being sick and dead, you know, and it is ridiculous. We need a change. And this is how I man tell the story through my eyes, from what I man have witnessed from violence.
All right, well, it's a pleasure to have you on the program. Let's feature that track here right now, and then we're going to come back with some more right here on Hightts, where knowledge grows. Here's Samari. Welcome back to Hightts, where knowledge grows. It's now 18 minutes after 7 o'clock, and we're inside our segment, all courtesy Grow Gurus, boy. Of course, we have teacher Derek back on the inside and teacher Mark on the inside, as dubbed by Junior Kelly just last week. It's a pleasure to have you guys back on the program. What's our topic for this evening, gentlemen?
The topic we're touching this evening is cloning. Not Dolly the sheep, but cloning of the cannabis plant.
And strangely enough, you would say that because I had a conversation with a guy who, I guess, maybe does his own thing at home. And his thing was that, boy, I really love to work with clones. I remember that this thing, because we hearing the guy saying that this morning. He said, boy, I have a better chance when I work with my clones.
The uniformity.
So I don't understand. I don't know what you're saying, but I guess we can iron it out now.
Basically, Sonny, like with parents, when you cross two strains together to make new seeds, the children, the offspring of these seeds will be a little different. They will have characteristics of the mother, the father, sometimes the best of both, sometimes the worst of both, but they will be all different. So with each seed you pop, you can't really get the same consistent product each and every time without the process of cloning. Mark.
That is what we call pheno hunting. When you pop seeds, let's say you pop 10 seeds in one strain, they're all going to be very similar, but they're all going to be very different, sorry.
Okay.
And as Derek mentioned, that's where cloning comes in. You find your most desirable one, and you take clones. When you take clones, it's a carbon copy. You know exactly what you're getting.
Yeah. So I mean, this is so when we talk about pheno hunting. Pheno, when you hear the word pheno, it's the phenotype. It's that unique genetic expression within that seed that you would have popped. So in order to harness it and keep it around, and to keep on growing it, we have to cut clones from the plant. I mean, you could re-veg, but that's a topic for another conversation. But generally speaking, we keep clones. So you know that whether I grow it, you grow it, once we grow it under similar conditions, we get pretty much the similar product. I mean, little differences along the way. The plant is very sensitive, so sometimes, you know, each grower will have a different experience depending on the situation. So in terms of cloning, Mark, what are your tips for our listeners out there?
The most important thing, start with a healthy mother plant. That is the number
So we're
one
talking
thing.
no bugs, no pests, no deficiencies within the plant.
Nope, none of that. You want to start with clean, healthy cuttings, and you don't want them overfed either. You don't want the mother plants overfed. Any kind of build up of nitrogen is going to slow down rooting.
Okay.
You know, that is a big aspect of cloning. Your clones will root stronger and faster without a lot of nitrogen built up in the mother plant. Me personally, I like to keep my mother plants organic for a reason. Organic grown mother plants, they are much more resilient and they root faster to me.
Oh, okay.
I have compared them
that's
side by side.
actually with that.
They have a resiliency that's very different than
Okay,
plants fed with
so we have a plan that it looks good. I mean, what generally what we recommend as growers is that we take the cuts before we flower the plant, because I mean it might be a little too late after you flower the plant to say, oh my God, this is the best weed I've ever grown, the best cannabis I've ever grown, and you can't grow it back again.
Right.
You have to go through the lottery again. So you know, Mark, in terms of picking the right clone, what size, you know, how big the plant has to be, you know, where on the tree you want to take a cutting from the tree ideally?
The technical term meristem, which in layman's terms tops. You want tops. Those tops have the most amount of growth hormones. The top of the plant has more growth hormones, more vigor than lower branches, obviously. Now you could still use those lower branches. You have a healthy plant, they're gonna root. But your tops, your meristems.
So you find they actually root faster.
Oh yeah. You get more vigorous growth out of them.
And in terms of the length of the clone, so we to the viewers out there, you know, we don't need to cut down the entire plant. You don't need a big long branch the size of your arm. I mean, the general rule is 5 nodes, and nodes are where the leaves grow from the main stem, well, the stem of the plant.
The points when new growth is coming out. Yeah.
New growth is coming out. So
around those nodes on the stem, you have a concentration of what you call auxins, which is in layman terms growth hormones. So yeah, those nodes, once you have those within the rooting medium, they root much faster through
so them. I mean, again, from reading 45-degree angle, generally I cut sterile working equipment as well. I mean, in my experience, sterile working equipment, any little disease, any little bacteria introduced.
You got to remember, when you clip that cutting off that plant, that cutting is still alive and it's under a tremendous amount of stress. Now, being that it's under that tremendous amount of stress, it's wide open to viruses, pathogens, bacteria, all that kind of stuff. So you want to keep everything. You want to, I just work with gloves on my hands. I don't have a lab facility, but I'm going to disinfect my surface, all of that. I have a box of new blades. I'm going to use that. And the 45-degree angle, the reason you want to do that, you could root a clone just cutting it straight or just breaking it off.
More surface area.
More surface area, but more importantly, when you cut that 45-degree angle, if you look at it, you're going to see a lot more white than if you would have just cut it straight. You open up more tissue. When you disrupt those cells, you promote rooting. You promote some vigor there where you did the disruption.
Okay, so we have a plant. We take the cutting now. So now we're moving on to the rooting hormone that in order to to encourage the rooting process. You know, there are many brands out there for our listeners out there, expensive ones, cheap ones, brand name ones, which you might see online. I've actually seen persons dip it in aloe vera.
First clone I ever rooted, I dipped it in a piece of aloe, and it rooted.
Yeah. So we dip it. We dip it. So I mean, these products are available at our sponsor 1212. Things like Clonex, Athena Cuts. There are other brands out there as well. There are cheap versions too in the normal agri stores. Rootex, and you dip it into it, not too much, and then into a Rockwool cube or
a root riot.
And from there.
Well, that is a very important step. I'm gonna use Clonex for my example. Like Clonex does a lot. It's not just a rooting hormone; it also cauterizes the wound where you open it up. That's gonna protect it from picking up any bacteria and pathogens and stuff like that. Another tip is also scrape around the base of the stem before you dip it. You're disrupting the cells some more, and plus you gain a little bit of penetration with the rooting hormone when you
I
do that.
understand.
All right, so we inside this segment here, guys, with the kind compliments of 1212 Grow Company located at 103C St. Vincent Street, as well as 10-pack. We actually have some giveaways here, guys. We're going to give away a 10-pack of
A pH pen, a 10-pack of root rats, and
a single-use pack of Clonex. No?
pH pen today.
So we
okay,
do-
no,
so we
just the
doing-
pH pen today.
So today we're working on the pH pen, right? So that's the LCD litmus pH meter pen,
Yes.
correct?
And we have spoken about pH previously and the importance of pH in cannabis growth, and in order to test the soil and also the water and the nutrients that are inputted, cannabis prefers a certain type of environment.
Slightly acidic.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do as well, you're going to open the phone lines as you guys are having their conversation. You guys feel free to call us up, 624-155, 623-5001. You can call us up here, guys, and get on the inside. If you think you can answer a simple question, you get a chance at winning yourself that pH meter pen right here on Slam on 0.5 on Freedom 106.5 FM inside our Grow Guru segment, brought to you with the kind compliments of 1212 Grow Company. So we have Teacher Mark and Teacher Derek. They're sharing with us here right now inside Hightts. Let's continue.
Yeah, so when we cut the clone, we scrape it at the 45-degree angle, we scrape it, we dip it into the rooting solution or hormone, Clonex in some cases, or Rootex, so aloe vera, as Mark said he tried and it worked at a success. Into a root riot or rock wool, which is a cube to hold the clone in place and allow the roots to grow. It's a growth medium essentially. It sells in agri stores. And
Right.
even now by our sponsor 1212, check them out, Montgomery Street. Then what do we do with these cuttings and
Ideally, you want to keep them in what we call a dome. That dome is going to hold the rock wools or the root riot, whichever you decide to use.
So it's like a glorified rotisserie container from the grocery, which specially made the holy rock wool. Essentially, I've seen
Right.
persons use the rotisserie container.
Yeah. It's a taller cover.
Yeah.
Basically, what you're doing in there is you're creating the correct environment to keep those clones alive. They need warmth and they need high humidity. Not too high. Too high could actually be detrimental
To
to
dampen them off.
Yeah, they could dampen them off. They start to rot, that type of thing. You want to keep it 70 to 80% humidity. That's gonna allow those clones to absorb moisture from the
Because they have no roots.
airspace in it. They have no roots.
So until they form those roots, they'll have to absorb water and from their leaves in order to grow, keep on growing, keep healthy, and to shoot out roots. And then
Transpiration is the proper word for it.
correct, sorry. I haven't done science in quite a while. This is exactly.
Transpiration. Folks, as I said the number before, 6241005, 6235001. You can call us up right here on Slam on 0.5. I have a simple question for you guys. I don't want to say the question just yet, but you can call us up right now. It's a pH-related question as we talk cannabis here this evening inside our Grow Guru segment, brought to you with the kind compliments of 1212 Grow Shop. Guys, continue.
Yeah. So from there now, we have a dome. Again, I've seen some persons reuse the rotisserie containers, but Mark is right. Sometimes it's too short because a 5-node clone, depending on how big it is, it will touch the top and wouldn't allow any room for growth.
We're getting a call here now. Let me cut you real quick and take
No
that
problem.
call. Let me see what we got here. Good afternoon, your line. Good evening. Load on your stereo, please. Please load on your stereo.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. What's
Evening,
your
how you
name?
doing?
Okay, what are you?
I said, what's your name?
Kyle.
Kyle, so you're calling, of course, maybe try and get yourself this pH pen, all courtesy 1212 Grow Shop, yes?
Yes, of course.
And I would assume that you're 18 years and over, more so 21 and over, yeah?
Yes, that's right.
Because, of course, you cannot collect this unless you are, all right? So don't mama guy yourself and play yourself anyhow you take it. But here's your question, though. What pH does cannabis prefer? Yeah, this is a multiple choice question. What pH does cannabis prefer? Is it A, very acidic, B, slightly acidic, C, very alkaline, or D, neutral?
Slightly acidic.
Slightly acidic is absolutely correct, and there you go. Just like that, you're a winner this evening. Just like that, you're a winner this evening. Big and bad.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Mr. Kyle.
Kyle, do you have your WhatsApp, your phone WhatsApp ready?
Yeah.
Send us a WhatsApp with your ID, please, to 707-SLAM. That is 707-7526. What's your surname?
Ram Logan.
Ram Logan. All right, so I'm going to look out for your name and your ID on WhatsApp, okay?
All right, done.
Congratulations. and
Congratulations
thanks,
to everyone, Kyle. Keep on listening in.
That's a
And
nice
try
score
again.
there, man, by 12-12. That PH pen is very important. It's
Yeah.
useful.
That's a big deal right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's continue.
Okay, so we have the curtains now, so it's important to put it under some form of light. I've seen persons put for 18 hours a day because at the end of the day, or even more.
Right. I've tried it 18, I've tried it 20, I've tried it 24. To me, 18 works best. That little rest period seems to help them along the process.
And we're not talking fancy LED setup, so
No,
HPS
as far
lights.
as lighting, you actually want weak lighting. And the reason for that is if you have strong lighting, those clones, especially if they came from a very healthy mother and they have some nutrients built up on them, they're going to focus on photosynthesis. You don't want them to focus on photosynthesis. That's growing. You don't want them to grow. You want them to root. So you want enough light to keep them awake, but not enough for them to do a bunch to focus on growing a lot.
Yeah, and you want to keep them to keep the humidity up within the dome. Usually we use a spray bottle with sterile water, spraying it. If I mean sometimes the dome, if the holes on the top of the dome are closed, it can last quite a long time.
Right.
But depending on the situation, the environment, you may need to rehydrate them and spritz them a bit with a spray bottle.
That's another thing to it, Derek, and I want to remind all the listeners. These cloning tips that we give in are general. Cloning is a very individual thing, I notice, and Derek would probably be able to attest
Yeah, it
to
depends
that.
on the plant.
Everyone has their own way, and every plant is different.
Correct.
What works for me is not going to necessarily work for Derek, and vice versa. It's a very individual thing. Everybody
And practice
fine-tunes
makes wicked.
Yes, everybody
Well,
fine-tunes the method.
I'm seeing here that Kyle didn't waste any time at all when sending in his information to our WhatsApp page. So yes, Kyle, we got your info, the IDs, all that we require. And of course, we have your contact number, so we're going to make sure and get in contact with you from there on out. All right, thank you guys.
Yeah, so I mean, so Spirit, how long does it root? You set up the process, you have your dome, you take a cuttings from a healthy mother, you put it underneath weak light.
There's really no set time frame. I've seen them start to show roots from as early as 4 days, all the way up to 2 weeks. You know, I've seen certain phenotypes stay healthy, stay green, stay alive, but they show no roots for 2 weeks. Once the roots start, it was like normal.
Yeah.
But usually within the 7 to 10 day period, you're gonna see roots.
Is my experience. But again, I mean, it's always good to. I mean, again, we advocate for four plants only within the per person, within the legal limit. But I mean, it's a better idea. I think sometimes to take a few more cuts in case, because success can vary along the way.
Right.
It's not an exact science in the sense that you put this that the other and you get the exact result each and every time. It depends on your genetics. Sometimes again with cleanliness being very, very important factor you wouldn't believe.
The more sterile it can be with the cloning process, the more success you're gonna
And
have.
then once these clones are rooted within the rock wall or the root riot, then we move on to transplant within a small cup of pro mix or cocoa, whatever your growing medium is, and then same under the light because it will take a little time for it to root within a small cup.
Right. You want a significant amount of roots. Not enough roots is going to give you a little bit of a transplant shock. Too much roots is going to give you a little bit of transplant shock. But once you get them transplanted, you want to feed them a very weak nutrient solution because they're new roots. You don't want to shock them. Very weak nutrient solution, very weak lighting, and still high humidity.
Yeah.
You want that high humidity during the hardening off process. Remember, they was relying on the humidity in the dome to stay up and stay hydrated. If you just expose them to open air like that, they will wilt, for lack of better words. They will. It won't take long either.
And then once you have your clones then and they're fully rooted in the cup, you're ready to grow and grow the exact same thing that you would have been growing previously. So that strain or that one of grow that all your friends couldn't get enough of when they. You can grow it back again. They could
Right.
see it again within a few months and you could share it with them.
And touching on what Sonny mentioned, his friend like to work with clones. There's uniformity and consistency. He knows exactly how they're gonna the growth rate. He knows how to feed them, how to train them, what's gonna be.
Whether they're male or female.
Right. That's another thing too. Yeah.
To be honest, that's actually where he came from with the male or female part.
Right,
So with the
right,
clones,
right,
you're
right.
sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? X,
Yeah.
Y, and Z. As opposed to boy, you don't go through the process, then boom, you realize, no, you gotta make it.
I mean, there are regular seeds, which can be male or female. Usually it's about 50% chance, and then there are feminized seeds from breeders. But I mean, some persons prefer the regular seed stability of genetics as opposed to the feminized seeds. We'll go into, how they produce that probably at a later stage of guru. So once persons stay tuned, yeah, they can look forward to more information.
All right, so folks, you've just been tuned in to the Grow Guru segment. Thanks again, guys, and special thanks to our giveaway sponsor, 1212 Grow Company. If you want to grow high quality plants, check out 1212 Grow Company at 103C St. Vincent Street, Port of Spain. 1212 has grow tents, lights, AC Infinity fans, Athena, Fox Farm, Geo Green, Mars Hydro, General Hydroponics, soils, and advanced nutrients, right? 1212 is open from Mondays to Fridays between 10:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. and Saturdays from 10:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. You can also give them a call at 267-6600, 267-6600. Coming up after the break, we are joined by Josie Mendoza of Stoned Sweets. We're going to be talking edibles when we come back after the break. So thanks again to Teacher Mark and Teacher Derek. Any closing remarks here before we take that pause?
No, really, no. Let's look for next week. Send us any questions on our social media pages, Instagram, TikTok. Any questions you may have, and we'll get round to the topic, so we'll try to answer them in the next show.
All right.
Make you want to sing. Yes.
8 minutes after 7 o'clock. Welcome back to Hightts, the Caribbean's #1 cannabis culture and industry show. Check out Hightts on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Spotify, and each other major platform, and every other major platform, all right? We are now joined in studio by Josie Mendoza, the owner of Stone Sweets now. With a passion for cooking and baking, Josie started Stone Sweets back in 2018 when her friends asked her to make edibles for them. It was such a hit that they encouraged her to start a business, and the rest was history. And we have Josie in studio with us here this evening, joining us on Hightts. Good evening and welcome to our program. How are you doing?
Hi, good night. I'm good. How are you?
I'm quite all right. It's a pleasure to have you here on the program with us.
And it's a pleasure to be here.
Nice, man. Hightts, where knowledge grows. So from the time you came in, of course, I asked off here, what did you work with? And I saw beverages, I saw things in packs. I didn't get to open all what's in here yet. The guys think I'm trying to steal it all, which I'm not, but if they give me a chance, I would. Chocolate fudge brownie. Let me see what's going on there. I see we have also chocolate cheesecake brownie. That looks good too. And I also see we have here Loca Pina.
I'll try that one.
This is like the same one we tossed out just now there.
Yes, I brought
I'll make sure and share these things, Don't just leave me out, So I'm going to start the conversation right off the bat one time around with a very serious question when it comes to edibles. A lot of people know the culture of marijuana, cannabis, being able to smoke the flowers, as they say, and all that kind of stuff. However, edibles now, where people say that you only know exactly how much you took after you done take it.
Yes.
How do you control the dosing when it comes to edibles?
What you would do, you'll have to test it. So I have had my stuff lab tested already, so I know the potency. So the milligrams that you see on the pack is accurate.
Yeah.
So based off of that, what I would do is advise people based off of, do you smoke? If you have a high metabolism, I need to know these things to advise you what to try, because I have stuff at different strengths.
Mm-hmm.
So we have from the weakest, which is 24 milligrams, and to the strongest, which is 400 milligrams.
Wow, up to 400
Up to
milligrams.
400.
As in a dose, like in a pack, like in a brownie, you can get up to 400 in a brownie.
I cater for everybody.
Oh wow! Now you mentioned that you mentioned lab tested, and that's important because we saw stories online with people who would have said, boy, they had drinks from different companies and people who trying different things, little backyard stuff that people coming up with, and people have been falling ill, right?
Yes.
And of course, that is something that we're going to be concerned about in the edible world. So you have combated that by going to get your stuff tested. That's something you have done locally or internationally?
Locally.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know you described the ranges. The highest one was what, 400?
The highest is 400.
And for the average person, how long would that high last you?
The average person.
Yeah.
If you eat, it depends on how much you eat. If you eat the entire thing, it could last the entire day.
So let's put it in range of, as they say, like flowers. Like, okay, the lemon on the radar. A man putting up a roll on a spliff a joint. 400 comes like how many? If you want to put it that way, then
That's if you're smoking all day.
Okay, so one
It's
brownie,
serious.
that one brownie at 400 come like you put up a few grams well.
Yes,
for the day.
definitely.
Most definitely.
And is that like a functional high?
It really depends.
On who you are.
I guess it depends on tolerance.
It really depends on your tolerance. If
For
you
a
are
regular smoker.
regular smoker, it should be tolerable, but my stuff is strong.
Okay. Hey Josie, what a question that a lot of people have been asking, when it comes to edibles, there are a lot of different people on Instagram, posting up different companies posting up stuff. Where are we from the aspects of legality? Because that is a question that we would want to find out.
Because we're actually live on the airwaves here. We're using such strong terms like we have lab tested stuff, which is good. You're hearing you're hearing proper business direction
because
in
you
what's going
need
on.
to be in the proper direction for this when it is legalized. Because if you're not in the proper direction, then people wouldn't want to legalize it, right?
Yeah.
Now,
In terms of legality, we not on the legal grounds right now. However, I do hope that in the future they will change their mind or adjust the laws to cater for this, because just as cannabis is something that could be consumed in many ways, and consuming it as an edible, it could be better for somebody who doesn't like to smoke, etc. It depends on the way that they would like to consume it.
What got you started with this though? What made you know that you had the talent and skill to even produce?
I love to cook. I love to bake.
Yeah.
And that was it.
So is a vision of yours to like have a maybe like an edibles restaurant or something?
I would like to actually branch off
Me
into
too,
the
you know.
food business. Well, we could link up.
Yeah, you see how links are
me
formed.
too. I mean, yeah, the same food related thing. I think as a culinary standpoint, that's a good way to develop in the future in TNT as well.
But how has the business been going? Is there quite a demand?
Yes. With regards to my business and where I stand, I have a lot of customers. I have good support, and because of my knowledge, certain things whereas another business owner may not be able to answer questions that I can answer, because of that, they feel comfortable to buy from me. I could advise you, because I'm not the person that would, okay, I just want the sale. No, I want to know that you enjoy yourself, you have a good time, which is why I have different strengths.
Right.
So I need to know a little bit about any customer that I deal with in order to advise them, because I don't want you to try something strong and you have a bad experience,
as much
because
as-
that is the rep edibles have. You ate the entire thing and you had a terrible experience.
Yeah. And as much as you may have had stuff lab tested, etc., and you mentioned that you listen to people before you say what to take, what not to take, do you also work with doctors per se?
Yes, I do have medical advice. I have a little knowledge myself. I can't say I'm still learning. Every day I would learn something new. That's how life is. I have people that I could advise. For example, I have a couple customers that use this specifically for pain.
Right.
I have some customers that are diabetic, and I try to cater for them just so, the sugar would not affect them.
So you have elderly
Yes, I
patient?
do.
Okay.
One of my customers, he is 60 something and he uses it for pain. He had a stroke and he uses my edibles for pain.
Wow.
What kind of strength would you say that he works with then, for instance? Like, this is a 24 here we see,
Because of his pain, he says he has excruciating pain. He goes at 50 milligrams
Oh, wow.
Okay.
at a time.
What input material you use? What's the source material? To get the extract. I
Don't give away
so I
trade
know.
secrets, eh? You have to-
No, I don't think it's a trade secret. I mean, yes, your method of extraction might be a trade secret, and your recipes is in. But I mean, it's a reasonable question to ask. What source material? Whether it's Kush, is locally grown weed.
It depends on what I have available. I could use Kush, I could use high grade. The teas, I try to use high grade only. Sometimes I would mix it and I would advise my customers accordingly.
Okay.
But I've always wondered, is there a difference? Does the difference in the grade come across in an edible as it does with smoking?
That will be, the answer for that would be yes, because of the terpenes.
Okay.
The terpenes of the bud, what you smoke, you will taste it in the product.
Oh.
Because terpenes,
Sounding
they are
like you're
for...
tasting something.
I don't know, I just listening, and as I listen, I mean, that's kind of waving my tongue
Terpenes are
around.
flavor and scent, so yes, it would, especially in the drinks.
All right. Okay.
You know, I you spoke about an elderly customer you had it before. Can you tell us, a range of persons who, with decriminalization? Because quite frankly, I mean, my experience, they have doctors who trying it now. They have lawyers. I mean, not that these persons in these high places weren't doing it all along under the cover, like all the stories we always heard. But more so now, people more willing to take a chance. Or, I mean, we've also found a lot of persons who are suffering with illnesses that medication wasn't really doing it for them. Kind of experimenting now with more information out in there in the public domain, especially in the US.
I would add to that is because I would think a lot of people go in more organic as opposed to pharmaceuticals. But I have customers that range from doctors, lawyers, public service, police officers. A lot of them, most of them use it for pain, some recreational, some just want to rock back and enjoy a Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
Just as we continue the conversation, I think that we in a place now where cannabis is becoming it's has always been here, and now it's on the forefront, and it's part of the conversation. And edibles is also one of the biggest part of the conversation. Everyone is looking at it as an option to try because not much people want to smoke. What is there in place within Stone Sweets to protect those who, I mean, like minors and people, because we know that there's a risk factor because you're talking from 24 grams or 400 grams. How do we protect our youth?
So what I would do, any customer that I come across, I need to find out if you are at least a certain age and over, because I don't want to be selling to minors, obviously. So I would just ask their age, confirm it, and then from there we could proceed to the questions, the usual questions. Do you smoke? Ever tried edibles, etc.? And there, I will commence from there.
And where do you see edibles? Do you think edibles has the potential to elevate cannabis cuisine? We have our specific offerings, the doubles, the pale, all this.
Yes, I do. I actually, in the very near future, I'll give you all the little sneak peek. I will be dabbing into
Sneak
food.
peek, we get
Yeah,
a
that's
taste
me
to
too.
them.
Of course.
Okay, very well.
I agree with you 100%. And because what I have observed is more so on the local front. The folks that may have been involved in edibles were more from a sweet standpoint, more from a dessert standpoint. And I'm not really much of a dessert man. It's nice, but my point is I still wait. I look forward for what we just mentioned there. For instance, the real culinary experience. You go somewhere for a 3-4 course meal.
Well, guess what? You're talking to the right person.
No, that was saying we in the same boat because I might be ahead of you. I have some things in the kitchen.
Sonia, butter to go with the steak, boy.
Then they have more than just a herb butter. What about a CBD tamarind sauce for your doubles? Let's not, we don't go down the road. There are real places we can go with this thing.
And you call the double stand.
So you're
Ed.
telling me about?
So it's
When I
Ed
could just
doubles.
Come on.
make a little tack back and bring a little burger for you and that.
So that's what I mean, but my point is in everything, in every way, you know what I mean? You
It could be incorporated into so many things.
yeah, you can imagine that barbecue sauce and that steaming into that
Mashing
chicken
it.
and or you're baking your fish on that barbecue sauce and that, and, oh my gosh.
And honestly, I don't know, people who never smoked, when you smoke and you eat food after, something about it just magnifies the taste, like the nuances of the
Yes,
taste.
because
in
your
food for some
hands,
reason.
your hands.
And
Yeah,
it is
to
an aphrodisiac. It's a stimulant.
In heightened senses.
Even something I read as well, they said, I don't know how true it is, but of course we are here in the Caribbean, we are overloaded, and I have trees in my yard in terms of, they said, mango. I
Because
understand
it
that mango.
shares a terpene with cannabis.
Yeah, so they said basically if you enjoy a mango 20 minutes before you have a session, it actually increases the
It enhances
Right,
the
I've
high
heard
of
that too.
THC.
yeah, mango, yep. As in mangoes, and we in the Caribbean, we mango people. So
Argentina,
when you see me
mango.
picking 15, 20 starch a day, there's reasons, man. No, I'm telling you.
If you know, you know.
No, I'm saying, I want to say if you know, you know. But my point is, so you learn something, and this is what Hightts is about. Is when knowledge grows, right? And we have to be real. So these are things that I popped up online, and it was not like a local source that taught me. This is something international. I was like, oh wait, I have 4 mango trees in my yard. I have 2 Julie and 2 starch. The best of the best. Look how I like mango more now. You know what I mean? And then we look at it again from the angle of the culinary standpoint. So there are many ways that we could afford to go. You could imagine you have an infused mango chop, knowing what mango does within itself. It levels within itself. Don't run with us, we will fall out. But at the same time, this is my point here, folks, and this is why we have this program, Hightts, where knowledge grows. Derek Achong, Otto Carrington, Joshua C. Mongolo on the inside here this evening, and we're joined by Josie of Stoned Sweets. Now, you came already and you spoke this evening. We saw brownies, we saw some cheesecake type brownie stuff. There's a drink as well too. What other types of products you have going on?
Right, so I have brownies, I have cheesecake brownies, I have the, Trini milk fudge, melt in your mouth. I have that.
Ooh, they think they run straight into your blood. What madness is this?
I have cookies.
Sugar, let's go straight down.
I have cookies and cream fudge. I do cakes as well. As you can see, I brought the slices of the pineapple upside down cakes. I do drinks. The drinks are actually teas.
Yeah.
When you taste it, I want you to make a guess what type of tea that is.
That's high tea.
Obviously, in terms of your original recipes, I know you probably baking and showing Granny back in the day when you were a teenager. When you seem to be doing this a while. Did you have to adjust your recipes to go with cannabis, or is it a situation that's once you make your butter or your oil, your extracted oil, that you just slap it into any recipe? Was there some little adjustments?
I adjust my recipes. All of my recipes are created by me.
Yeah.
Original by me.
Everyone is kind of watching me right now. The room went quiet because I literally started to sip the tea.
Yeah.
And everybody was kind of watching me like, oh my God, oh my God, oh
want
my
the
God. I
verdict?
don't know why. So, no, not the verdict. Until 8 o'clock now. We have a
No,
little
no,
while
not that
there.
verdict. Taste verdict.
Oh, no. I'm still swishing around at the moment. Here's what we're going to do. Let's take a quick commercial break. And let's come back with some more right here on Slam on 0.5 and Freedom 106.5 FM. We have Stone the Sweets on the inside. I am trying a tea. Now, hear this, right?
Yeah.
I tried the cheesecake earlier on there. That was the cheesecake.
Yeah, the
and
chocolate cheesecake.
Chocolate cheesecake. And that was 24
That's the one of the weakest.
24 milligrams, right? I'm trying the tea right now, which starts at 220. So from 24, we went to 220. So I guess we'll be able to have a better conversation in at least 3 to 5 minutes, man. Don't worry, we'll be right back.
Experience the thrill, the drama, and the
A little over 5 minutes remaining in our program this evening. We thank you guys so much for joining us right here on Slam on 0.5 and Freedom 106.5 FM. We have Josie with us from Stone the Sweets. Let's continue our conversation, Joshua.
Josie, I just wanted to widen the conversation a bit. Tell me your thoughts on how things have changed with decriminalization. I know you had your familiar with the ground, the feeling on the ground and that sort of thing. How do you think the culture, cannabis culture locally has changed? We've had a lot of, I want to say, closet smokers in the past, but with decriminalization, have you noticed a change as well?
Yes, people are becoming a little more outgoing, more interested, willing to try different things. So with decriminalization, it has impacted people in a positive way.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, rather than, as I said, pharmaceuticals, they're leaning towards cannabis because there are healing properties of the plant.
And the formal sector is supposed to, some would say it's taken a bit long, but it's supposed to be up and running. And Minister Arawi said, within the next 2 months, he's supposed to appoint the board. Do you want to apply for a license to get into the industry?
I would like to.
Yeah.
Definitely. As much legal grounds as I could get, I would like to apply for it.
So are you working with a lawyer at present? Meaning,
I do
in light of understanding where you're flying right now on the radar, and you are going about it as best as possible, getting the right amount of information and support in terms of making sure to get a medical expert involved and people involved to test the products and these things. So you're going about it as right as humanly possible. So I just had to ask as well, do you have some sort of legal advice going on with what you're doing?
Yes, I do. By all means, as much legal advice as I could get from my lawyers, I do.
All right, so folks, in case you just tuned into the program late this evening, it's our 5th episode of Hightts, and of course we're joined by Josie Mendoza of the edibles food catering company Stone Sweets, and we're talking a bit about some of our products. Now let's talk about in terms of being able to locate you. If some folks want to get you on Instagram, is there something, you have an Instagram page or
yes,
a contact number?
Yes, I have Instagram. You guys can check me out on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok. If you'd like to get a contact number, it's 329-6669.
All right, now before we wrap things up, I want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that I would have tried this evening. All right, so I'm like the guinea pig of the program, to be honest. When people bring stuff in, I got a plant. I got a plant a few weeks ago. It's actually still in the cup. It's still in the cup almost 3 weeks later.
So this is guinea pig. It's like we have to force him
what I
to
mean,
try.
it's not that they're forcing, but my point is that I'm the tester.
willingly
I'm the tester here for the practical stuff. So my guys are not encouraging me to smoke any flowers, and it's not that. But my point is, people may come with different products like yourself, and why not? Let's try it.
Yes.
So this evening I tried Stone Sweets chocolate cheesecake brownie, 24 milligrams. Walk in the park.
Would that thing kick in yet?
Walk in the park.
That's the weakest. That's not
That means
anything.
Sonny, this, Sonny, this, we're talking, it come like you now study marathon.
No, I'm going to move on. I'm not done the conversation.
You now study marathon.
And from there, I've also tried this evening, what is this? Velvety, 220 milligrams.
Wow.
But Josie,
A nice chilled chocolate
it takes
tea.
like 1 to 2 hours for it to kick in.
It depends on the person's tolerance, their metabolism.
On average, how long it would
on
take?
On average, it could take about an hour.
An hour? So we talking big now.
But
we go here from
the biggest
him.
factor with Sonny is the tolerance.
Yeah, it's going to be tolerant. Let's put it this way. I'm just going to share a little true story, right? So I went to the dentist.
Sure you want to do that?
Oh, sure. Not a problem at all. I went to the dentist some time ago, about some early in the year. Beginning of the year, right, to do a little cleaning and a little work. And I actually had to have what you consider to be the maximum amount of doses to numb my mouth. Because it's like, why are you not getting numb? Like, why aren't you getting numb?
Wow.
Like, why aren't you getting numb? It was so intense, as in they went all the way up to what they can legally give a person before saying, we'll have to just cancel this whole thing. Because the tolerance level,
Batsman.
Yeah.
Well, I bow to you, Sir Sonny Bling.
Well, that's not a boastful thing.
I
I'm
know it's
just
not
saying.
boastful. I know it's not
And no two
boastful.
people,
It's
no
just
two
a
people are the
different
same.
It's just a different
and you
level.
never know
Yeah.
yourself until that moment. You know.
Because I mean that's a valid point because some people may be listening and thinking, well, I want to go on Stone Sweets and try. But again, your tolerance.
It would depend on your tolerance, and I would have to speak to you and advise you what to try.
There was
what
this
to
one
start.
time actually when I had a co-worker of mine or a friend I should say basically that had there was some edibles from abroad.
Right.
And the gummies and these things, right? And we think they come like 5 in a pack.
Does he medical grade one?
I assume so, but it's like
It would be from a dispensary.
5 gummies in a pack, dispensary related type stuff. And I think I had 2 of them. And another dude had one, and the one went home with one. And the other gentleman was like, you know what, I want a second one now. And within an hour, the brother was sleeping. And before the time was over, the brother got up and left.
Now I remember I had,
You know what I mean?
I had one of those for the Chronics concert, and boy, I was
And
floating.
And then I got a call later on the night from the other guy that went home with one. He's like, hey, I didn't even finish the first one. I'm ready to buy the first thing. Will you give me a bite? I'm like, whoa. So, you know, you really realize that there's different things happening with different people. But it's a pleasure having you come on the program.
And it's a pleasure.
In light of understanding where we still at in development and still being able to willing to share with the nation and still what you've been up to and, you know, how people can get involved and try different types of methods. Because I bounce up a lot of mature folks as well who would have that conversation and be like, you know, I really watching this thing, you know, and I mind, you know, but I feel like I want to eat something first as opposed to do that kind of wild thing on the road with the, you know, expensive. But again, in moderation and with education and understanding.
Yeah,
you know?
because at the end of the day, everything should be taken in moderation because too much of one thing is good for nothing.
Yeah.
You're sure right.
Yeah, everything in excess, nothing good in
Yeah,
excess,
of
you know?
course.
Nothing
No,
exceeds like excess.
It just hit me that we're talking about edibles on mainstream radio. Yes,
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah,
If,
really.
Yeah,
if,
that's amazing,
if
yeah.
that within itself, being real, if that within itself isn't some level of progress, then what is, you know?
Of
for
course
sure,
it is.
For sure.
Yeah, man. So thank you so much for being a part of our program here this evening. Is there anything you'd like to leave our listeners with?
If you all want to try any of my edibles, make sure you message me. Check me out on Instagram, WhatsApp 329-6669, Facebook. Could I shout out some people?
Of course you can. And someone just messaged her, hi, good night. Can I get back her handles and contact, please? So I guess if you could-
329-6669. Shout out to my Stone Sweets team, everybody who made it possible, my boys, my artists, Red. 868 Artistry. If you all need any graphic designs, check him out.
And that's it.
That's it.
All right. So thank you guys so much for being here.
Shout out to
Like
Green
Otto has
Trees.
some shout outs too.
Canatrin, like poor lad. Big up.
Big up.
And it's that man, big up the Green Trees family as well, all the same. That's it for the 5th episode of Hightts. Be sure to join us for episode 5 on May 23rd. We will be joined by the president of Women Grow USA, Gia Moron, local attorney CJ Williams, and Blaine Sobrian will be in the house, and reggae artist Mr. Royal, and the don't worry, we're gonna update that listing for you guys come next week, all right? Special thanks.
TTPS supposed to be on. Or to remind me who from TTPS will be there? Sergeant Small. All right, he will be joining us for the next show as well.
All right, so make sure and stay tuned for that, guys. Special thanks to our guests and our sponsors, Royal Extra Stout and 1212 Grow Shop. And remember to follow Hightts on TikTok, Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, and Facebook. You can also listen to past episodes via Amazon Music.